A wealthy entrepreneur was ashamed of his wife and brought his mistress to a lavish soiree. But upon arrival, what he witnessed stunned him. Subscribe to our channel so you won't miss more gripping stories like this one, and hit like to keep watching. The deep rhythm of music echoed through the venue, an elegant composition blending class and extravagance. The clink of crystal flutes, the subtle laughter of the elite, and the warm golden shimmer of the chandeliers created the perfect backdrop of absolute indulgence. Every detail was flawless, curated to captivate. But in that instant, Nathan heard none of it. His gaze was locked on the platform where a gentle spotlight cast its glow on Sierra. She was laughing, surrounded by adoring stares, as though she were the sun of the evening. The mistress he proudly paraded like a prized gem. The sleek crimson gown hugged her figure, and the diamonds hanging from her ears caught the room's light, magnifying her allure. She knew she was desired, and it thrilled her. "Are you okay?" Sierra asked, gliding her hand up his sleeve. Nathan blinked slowly, shaking off the strange feeling. "Yes, of course," he muttered. But his voice was unsteady. He should have been thrilled. Everything surrounding him was a symbol of his ascent. The soiree was a declaration of power, a testament that he had arrived. The crowd was elite, prominent moguls, high-level investors, loyal supporters of his ventures. He was respected, and now he stood beside a woman who embodied prestige and seduction. So why did the unease persist? A dissonant feeling crept through his chest, like something misaligned, something wrong, a quiet tension that refused to leave. That's when it happened. The hall's grand entrance opened. At first, no one noticed. But to Nathan, the moment stretched. His eyes fixed on the doorway, and his body turned cold. She was there, Leah. The woman he had kept from public view for years. The wife who always unsettled him, not because of who she was, but because of what she reminded him of. A past he desperately wanted to bury. She didn't fit the life he had engineered. She was too modest, too grounded. Or so he'd told himself. But standing beneath the golden light of the venue, Nathan's stomach dropped. Leah didn't look like the shadow of the woman he'd abandoned. She was glowing. Her black and gold dress, understated yet elegant, moved with grace. Her hair cascaded gently, and her eyes gleamed with a self-assurance he'd never recognized before. But it wasn't just her appearance that struck him. It was the way she entered, alone, without pause or hesitation, as though she belonged among them. Gradually, the crowd noticed her. Whispers stirred among the guests. Some reacted with surprise, others with quiet intrigue. A few knit their brows, trying to recall where they'd seen her. Leah didn't smile. She didn't seek attention. She was simply present, and that alone pulled every gaze her way. Nathan felt a chill crawl down his spine. Why was she here? And how had she changed so drastically? Beside him, Sierra sensed the shift in mood. Her hand clutched his arm more tightly. "Who's that?" The question came heavy with something Nathan couldn't define. Jealousy? Fear? He didn't respond. His pulse thudded violently as he watched Leah cross the room, every stride brimming with a confidence he'd never imagined she possessed. He thought he knew this woman, or at least he once believed he did. But the Leah standing before him was not the diminished wife he had discarded. She wasn't the woman who tolerated being sidelined, who settled for passing glances while he strutted around with Sierra at gatherings like this. The woman before him radiated a strength he'd never encountered, and it unsettled him deeply. Leah stopped near the bar, her posture poised. Every eye in the room shifted to her, and a waiter hurried to serve her. She accepted the champagne with quiet grace, but unlike Sierra, she didn't strive to captivate. It was effortless, and perhaps that was what made it impossible to look away. "Nathan," Sierra pressed, her tone edged with suspicion. "Who is that woman?" He sniffed lightly, trying to mask the crack in his composure. "No one." But that was a lie, and it unraveled the moment Leah's gaze locked with his and she smiled. It wasn't a greeting, nor was it shy or polite. It was a smile that declared, "I know exactly who I am, and now, so do you." Nathan felt a chill snake down his spine. She knew precisely what she was doing. The space seemed to shrink. The air turned thick. The elegant soundtrack of voices and instruments dulled to a low hum. Something was building, and Nathan could sense it. But what? And why now? What was Leah's purpose in appearing like this? Nathan turned to the nearest server and grabbed a glass of whiskey, swallowing it in one harsh gulp. He needed to steady himself. He needed to take control. But how? When it felt like he was on the edge of losing everything. His mind drifted to the day he decided to erase Leah from his public image. In the beginning, she had stood by him, faithfully. She went to formal dinners, smiled at stakeholders, supported every step of his career. But over time, Nathan began to believe she no longer belonged in the world he was creating. Leah was too unpolished. She didn't wear couture like Sierra. She didn't speak the polished language of high society. She talked about ideals and meaning when everyone else only cared for profits and power. It irritated him, and one day, he just stopped bringing her. He told himself it was necessary, that she represented the man he used to be, not the one he had become. But now, she was here. And she fit better than anyone. "She's coming this way," Sierra murmured beside him, her voice taut with unease. Nathan swallowed hard, and indeed, Leah began making her way across the ballroom. Guests moved aside for her as though her presence commanded it. Some of the most prominent figures in the city greeted her as if they already knew her. But how? Leah stopped right in front of him. The silence between them pressed down like a weight. Nathan opened his mouth to speak, but nothing came out. And then, cutting cleanly through the tension, came another voice. "Leah, what a surprise." Nathan turned. It was Graham Parker, a titan in the finance world, approaching with an expansive grin. Graham was a man Nathan had spent years trying to win over, always feeling just short of earning his full respect. Yet here he was, treating Leah as if they were longtime allies. "Graham," she replied smoothly, "didn't expect to run into you here." "I could say the same. You've made quite the impression lately. I've heard about the ventures you're spearheading. Impressive stuff." Nathan's brow furrowed. "What ventures?" "That's kind of you," Leah smiled. "There's still much to accomplish." "Well, you'll have to share more about it." "Will you join us?" Nathan felt his throat tighten. What did he mean, join us? Graham Parker, the very man who had never acknowledged him as an equal, was now asking Leah to sit at his table. Sierra, sensing Nathan's unease, squeezed his forearm. "What is happening?" she whispered. "Who is she, and how does she know Graham Parker?" Nathan had no answer. And before he could begin to find one, another man approached. He was tall, with a steady gaze that somehow managed to be both strong and gentle. His tailored suit and composed demeanor marked him as someone of importance. Leah turned toward him and smiled. "Ethan," she said softly. Nathan felt a cold wave rush through his chest. The man took Leah's hand, raising it to his lips in a gesture that was equal parts respectful and intimate. "I was hoping to find you," Ethan said, never breaking eye contact. "I was starting to think you wouldn't show." Leah laughed. "I wouldn't miss a night like this." Nathan felt his hand tremble around the glass he was holding. Who the hell was this man? And why did he speak to Leah as if they shared something deep? A thick pressure began to build behind Nathan's ribs, part rage, part grief. It wasn't just jealousy anymore. It was the unsettling realization that Leah had become someone who existed completely outside his orbit, and someone else had taken his place in it. The ground seemed to shift beneath Nathan's feet. Nothing added up. Leah, the woman he'd once kept in the shadows, was now the center of admiration. She was no longer invisible. Worse yet, she wasn't alone. Ethan rested a hand on the small of her back with aggravating ease, guiding her toward the table where Graham Parker stood. Leah walked with him, never once glancing back, not even for a second. That was when it hit Nathan. This was not the same woman he had taken for granted. Leah had changed. And the most painful part? She didn't need him anymore. What stung even more was the memory, so vivid now, of that night years ago, when Leah had asked him if she could attend one of his galas. She had been hopeful, dressed modestly but beautifully, her eyes searching his for validation. And he had looked at her for a beat too long, then muttered something about it being strictly business, and how it would be best if she stayed home. She had nodded, hiding her disappointment, and he hadn't given it another thought. Until now. Until this moment, watching her glow in a room full of people who truly saw her. That thought pierced deeper than he expected. It wasn't just that she was gone, it was that she had outgrown him. Nathan's mouth turned bitter. He had lost Leah, but now, more than ever, he wanted her back. Only it might be far too late. Sierra's discomfort was impossible to miss. Ever since that mysterious woman entered the venue, Nathan had become a different person. His eyes hadn't left her. His face kept shifting, confusion, surprise, and something else. Something Sierra didn't want to name, but felt tightening around her like a noose. She had to ask, "Nathan, who is that woman?" Her voice came out sharper than expected. He paused, gripping the glass. He didn't want to say it aloud, but his hesitation spoke volumes. "Oh my God," Sierra whispered, narrowing her eyes. "She's your wife? Or ex-wife? I can't even tell anymore." Nathan shut his eyes for a moment. He didn't want to confirm it, because it would make everything real. "Ex-wife," he said finally, though it lacked conviction. Sierra folded her arms, eyes returning to Leah. Suddenly, everything clicked. The tension, Nathan's stunned expression, the silence between them, most of all, the way he couldn't stop staring at her. Sierra clenched her jaw. "We're leaving," she said. Nathan blinked, forcing his gaze away from Leah. "I don't want to stay here anymore." "Let's go, Nathan." He hesitated. Part of him needed to stay. He wanted answers. He wanted to understand who Leah had become, what she had been doing. He found himself haunted by how little he'd known her. All those nights when she tried to talk, to share bits of herself, her goals, her thoughts. He had nodded distractedly, already focused on his next meeting or scrolling through his phone. Now, those neglected conversations felt like missed lifelines. But Sierra was already gathering her things, clearly annoyed. The murmurs in the room were growing. He couldn't risk a scene. With one last glance toward Leah, who was laughing now at something Ethan said, completely unaware of Nathan's stare, he relented. "Fine," he said, masking his resentment. They left in silence. Nathan couldn't sleep. The wall clock read 2:45 a.m., and he was still lying on the couch, staring blankly at the ceiling. Sierra was upstairs in the bedroom, likely pretending to sleep. After they got home, she'd noticed how absent he was and tried to talk, but it quickly became an interrogation, and he'd snapped. "That's enough, Sierra. I don't want to talk about this." "Of course you don't," she shot back, "because you're still thinking about her." He'd walked out, down to the couch. Now, alone in the dark, Nathan felt hollow, like something vital was missing. How had Leah transformed so completely? He couldn't stop replaying it. Her confidence, the way she held herself, her independence. It unsettled him more than he wanted to admit. And then there was Ethan. Nathan shut his eyes, recalling how the man had rested his hand on Leah's lower back. A subtle but loaded gesture. It screamed familiarity. And that was the moment Nathan truly felt replaced. Not just as a partner, but as a presence in her life. He felt something tighten in his chest. Leah was with someone else, and for the first time, Nathan realized she might actually be happy without him. The sun rose, but sleep never came. Still on the sofa, eyes bloodshot and mind racing, Nathan heard Sierra's footsteps descending the stairs. She stopped halfway into the room, eyeing him with open irritation. "You didn't sleep?" He dragged a hand across his face, drained. "I couldn't." Sierra crossed her arms, her tone sharp. "You were thinking about her, weren't you?" Nathan sighed in frustration. "Sierra, don't start." "Oh, it's not starting," she laughed bitterly. "I saw the way you looked at her, Nathan. You were hypnotized. You didn't even notice I was standing next to you." He stood from the couch, rubbing the back of his neck. "I'm just trying to make sense of it." "Make sense of what?" she snapped. "How the woman you threw away managed to thrive without you? How she's more stunning, more self-assured, more magnetic than ever?" He froze, staring at Sierra with a hardened face. She stepped closer. "It stings, doesn't it? Seeing her rise while you're stuck?" Her words dug into places he didn't even know were raw. He wanted to deny it, to argue back, but deep down, every syllable rang true. It wasn't just about Leah's success. It was the reflection it cast on his own failures. "I don't want to talk about this." Sierra let out a bitter laugh. "Of course you don't, because if you do, you'll have to admit the truth, to yourself." Nathan glared at her, his voice sharp. "Sierra, that's enough." "Enough," she exploded. "I deserve the truth, Nathan. How do you really feel about her?" He opened his mouth to respond. But then, without thinking, without even realizing, he made the one mistake he couldn't take back. "Leah, The silence that followed was crushing. Sierra's eyes widened, her expression like someone slapped across the face. Nathan's heart skipped. He'd done it. He'd said Leah's name, not Sierra's. "What did you just say?" she asked, voice breaking. "Sierra, You called me Leah." The air between them turned suffocating. Sierra's stomach twisted. Tears welled, but she refused to let them fall. "I'm such a fool," she whispered, shaking her head. "Sierra, please, wait." But she was already grabbing her purse. "No, Nathan, I've waited long enough. I waited for you to reassure me. I waited for you to say she didn't matter. But now it's clear. You've never moved on, have you?" He tried to reach for her, but she pulled away. Sierra stormed out the front door, slamming it behind her. Nathan ran after her. "Sierra, just listen." But she was already in her car. He pounded on the window, frantic. "Let me explain." She started the engine. Before driving off, she cracked the window slightly. "I should have seen it sooner." And just like that, she was gone. Nathan stood there on the curb, watching the taillights fade, alone for the first time in years. And it terrified him. The cold dawn breeze brushed against his skin, but he remained still. His mind was spiraling, trying to make sense of it all. Sierra had left, and the worst part, he hadn't even stopped her. But it was never really about Sierra. It never had been. There was guilt, yes, but also a hollow certainty he couldn't shake. She had always been the stand-in, a way to silence the echo Leah had left behind. And now, even that silence was gone. He dragged his hands down his face, feeling the weight of everything bear down. Since the night of the event, he hadn't found a moment's peace. Leah's face kept appearing in his mind, uninvited, unrelenting. Who was the woman he'd seen that night? Because it wasn't the same Leah he once left behind. That version of her, quiet, agreeable, hidden, was gone. And that scared him. He walked back into the house and sank into the sofa. The silence in the apartment felt heavier than ever. Nathan had always craved control, clarity, influence, order. But now, he felt unmoored. He had to know. Picking up his phone, he typed Leah Whitman into the search bar, and what he found stole the breath from his lungs. Articles, profiles, features. Leah appeared on the covers of business journals, in pieces about leadership and innovation. There was even a video of her speaking at a major industry forum. Nathan clicked. Her face filled the screen, poised in a sleek suit, her hair styled in soft waves, holding the microphone with assurance he had never seen. The greatest mistake is believing someone else completes you. I used to believe that. I reshaped myself to belong in someone else's world. But then I realized I didn't have to fit in their puzzle. I could design my own. The room erupted in applause. Nathan felt a knot twist in his stomach. He had never imagined Leah was capable of such power. He had never seen her for who she truly was. To him, she had always been just Leah, the woman at his side, the wife he could hide while he took center stage. But what stood before him now was undeniable proof that she had never needed him. And maybe, just maybe, she was better off without him. His eyes caught a name in the article beneath the video: Whitman Digital Strategies. Nathan's pulse quickened. Leah hadn't just pieced her life back together. She had built something. And not just any company, but one of the most exciting rising firms in the industry. He knew that world. Leah hadn't merely entered the arena. She had become a major player, and he had never seen it coming. His mouth went dry. If he hadn't seen it himself, he wouldn't have believed it. A tight ache formed at the base of his throat, the kind that came not from surprise, but from shame. Shame that he had underestimated her. That he had never cared enough to ask what she dreamed of. Leah stood at the window of her corner office, looking out over the towering skyline of Manhattan. The reflection in the glass revealed a woman unrecognizable from who she once was. Her gaze was sharp, her stance unwavering. She had reached the top. The path had been brutal. After stepping out from Nathan's shadow, Leah had questioned her very identity. Who was she without him? What could she become without being the wife of a high-profile entrepreneur? For a long time, she was adrift. Directionless. But then, something shifted. She realized she'd always had one thing Nathan had failed to see: intellect. Leah had always loved branding, the nuances of connection, how companies spoke to people. For years she'd supported Nathan quietly, shaping ideas, offering insight, proposing strategies. He never gave her credit. Never noticed that behind many of his achievements was her mind. One day she chose to stop waiting for recognition. If Nathan couldn't value her, the world would. She began anew. She took all she had learned and founded Whitman Digital Strategies, an agency for brands looking for a second chance, just like she had been. And in a twist of irony, the very professionals who once dismissed her now sought her guidance. She had become the very image of success he once doubted she could ever embody, and the irony carved deeper than any insult he had ever received. The phone rang, breaking her thoughts. Leah Whitman. Good morning. The voice was familiar. Leah, it's me. Her body stiffened. Nathan. The silence that followed lingered. Leah hadn't anticipated that call, but maybe in some way it was inevitable. She gripped the phone, her voice composed. On the other end, Nathan hesitated. He hadn't rehearsed anything. He had just dialed, compelled by an instinct he couldn't explain. I know it's been a long time, he began, voice steady but subdued, but I needed to talk to you. Leah inhaled deeply. About what? There was a pause. He hadn't expected her tone, so detached, as though he were nothing more than a distant acquaintance, not the man she'd once built a life with. About us. Her laugh was quiet, tinged with irony. Nathan, there is no us anymore. Every syllable was a cut. He should have known he had abandoned her, forgotten her. Now she was someone else. Someone he didn't recognize. Still, part of him couldn't let it go. I know I've made mistakes, he said, clutching the phone tightly. But can't we? No. Leah didn't waver, just silence. Nathan had never faced a rejection so absolute. He was used to control, in business, in image, in women. But Leah was no longer someone to control. I just want to understand what happened to you, he said eventually. Leah exhaled slowly. What happened to me? I woke up, Nathan. That's it? The finality in her voice drained the last trace of hope from his chest. His heart pounded. He wanted to say more. He wanted to believe they could fix things, start again. But before he could speak, the call ended. Nathan held the phone, listening to the empty static. She had truly shut him out, and he couldn't accept it. Leah placed the phone back on her desk and closed her eyes for a brief moment. She never should have answered, not out of lingering feelings, but because he didn't deserve her time. He had been the one to cast her aside, like she was some burden to be discarded. And now, after seeing her at her peak, he wanted back in, but it was far too late. She picked up her coffee and walked to the window. The Manhattan skyline stretched before her, vast and commanding. This was her world now. No longer hidden, no longer waiting for acknowledgement, no longer tethered to anyone's shadow. Each success, each breath of independence was earned through pain she'd had to endure in silence. Her thoughts were interrupted by the soft creak of the office door. You okay? Ethan's voice was gentle. She turned, meeting his steady gaze. Ethan was different. He had always given her room to breathe. He saw her as an equal, not someone to reshape. She smiled. Just a call from the past. Ethan raised an eyebrow, curious. Nathan? Leah nodded. He let out a slow breath, arms crossing. And what did he want? Honestly, I'm not even sure. He said something about wanting to talk about us, but there hasn't been an us in a long time. Ethan gave a knowing smile. He finally realized what he lost. Leah didn't respond, because deep down she knew Ethan was right. Nathan never believed she'd really walk away. Never thought she could rise without him. But now, seeing her at the top, he wanted to understand. He wanted answers that no longer mattered. There had been nights, dark, desperate nights, when Leah herself hadn't believed she'd ever feel whole again. But she'd clawed her way back, not for him, not for revenge, but because she finally believed she was worth it. Ethan stepped forward, taking her hand. Do you want to talk about it? She shook her head. No, it's over. He gave her hand a gentle squeeze. Then let's focus on now. Big meeting in 1 hour. Leah smiled. Let's do it. She walked beside him, leaving Nathan where he belonged, behind her. Nathan couldn't get her out of his head. He wanted to move on, to forget. But something inside refused. Leah had become a puzzle, and Nathan always hated puzzles he couldn't solve. So the next morning, he drove without direction, thoughts tangled from that call. That's when he passed the cafe near her office. His chest tightened. There she was, sitting by the window, coffee in hand, laughing with Ethan. Heat surged through his veins. What was he doing? Why was he here? He had no plan, but before he could second-guess it, he parked and stepped inside. Leah hadn't noticed him yet, but she would, any second now. The cafe bell chimed as Nathan entered. The scent of espresso and pastries hung in the air, but he felt none of it. His focus narrowed on the woman by the window. Leah. She was smiling easily, relaxed in a way he hadn't seen in years, free, at peace. Like leaving him had finally given her space to breathe. And then, as if she sensed it, she turned. Their eyes met. Her smile vanished. Stillness. No one moved. Ethan also looked up, his expression calm as he registered Nathan. But instead of reacting with hostility, jealousy, or even concern, he looked to Leah and asked gently, "Do you want me to stay?" She held Nathan's gaze for a long moment, then turned to Ethan and offered a soft smile. "It's fine." Ethan nodded, took his coffee, and stood. He placed a light kiss on her forehead and said, "I'll see you later." Then he passed Nathan without hesitation, without a single glance. That hit harder than anything Nathan had braced for. Ethan wasn't threatened, and that meant one thing. Leah no longer belonged to him. Nathan swallowed hard and approached. She sat still, composed, unshaken. He took the seat across from her, fumbling for words. "You don't look surprised," he said at last. She placed her cup down and interlaced her fingers. "I'm not someone who's easily surprised." Her voice was calm, but every syllable was precise, cutting. Nathan ran a hand through his hair, clearly rattled. "I needed to talk to you." Leah exhaled. "You already did, over the phone. Not like this." She lifted an eyebrow, waiting. Nathan took a long breath. "I made a mistake, Leah." She said nothing. He continued. "I was a coward. You were always there for me, always supporting me, and I hid from you. I dismissed you. And only now that I see you like this, do I understand what I lost." She tilted her head slightly, examining every word. "Nathan, let me ask you something." Her voice was soft, but unwavering. "If, on the night of that event, I had shown up as the old Leah, the one who waited at home, stayed in the background, would you be sitting here now?" His silence answered for him. Leah gave a faint smile. "I don't blame you. Truly, I don't. You were always exactly who you were. I'm the one who's changed." Nathan felt a tightness in his chest. "I want a second chance," he murmured. Leah gave a quiet, almost amused laugh, shaking her head. "Second chance, Nathan? We both know this story is over." He closed his eyes, the weight of her words settling over him. It wasn't just the end of a relationship, it was the collapse of a delusion he'd built for years. That she'd always be there, just waiting, that he was somehow irreplaceable. "But what if I told you I love you?" Her smile wavered. For a second he had hope, but then Leah picked up her bag and stood. "If you really loved me, you would have loved me when I was still standing beside you." It hit like a blow to the gut. Leah looked at him with a tenderness that carried no doubt. "I hope you find what you're looking for, but it won't be with me." She stepped back, drew a steady breath, and said in a calm but final tone, "Go find Sierra while you still can, because I'm no longer an option." And then, without turning around, she walked out of the cafe. Nathan remained seated, unable to move. He had never felt such emptiness. Around him, life carried on. The barista called out names, the city buzzed beyond the glass. But inside, everything had stopped. He had truly lost her, this time, for good. It wasn't just heartbreak. It was recognition. That for the first time someone had seen through him completely and chosen to walk away. What now? In a panic, he picked up his phone and scrolled through his contacts. Sierra's name appeared. He stared at the screen, debating. But what if Leah was right? What if Sierra was his last real chance? The one person who might still care. His thumb hovered over the call button. Sierra. She might be the only one who could stop him from slipping into complete isolation. But did she want to? Was there still a space in her life for him after everything? He raked a hand through his hair, the pressure in his chest mounting. Leah's scent still clung to the air, her voice, those final words echoing in his mind. "I'm no longer an option for you." The blow had landed, and this time there was no fixing it. She had moved on, with Ethan, with her business, with her future. He shut his eyes, choking back his frustration. Just days ago, Nathan believed he had everything, believed Leah would always be where he left her. But now it was all crumbling. His certainty, his pride, his place in her life, all dissolved. And for the first time he felt the weight of being replaceable. His fingers moved across the screen, and before he could change his mind, he hit call. The phone rang, once, twice, 3 times. Each tone made the dread in his chest grow heavier. "What do you want, Nathan?" Sierra's voice was cool, distant. He inhaled sharply. "I need to see you." She let out a short, dry laugh. "Now you do? And where was that when I walked away?" Nathan shut his eyes, guilt pressing down. "Sierra, I made a mistake." Silence. He could hear her breathing on the other end, but couldn't guess her thoughts. "Just realizing that now?" He paused. "I didn't know what I wanted." And now you do. The question was simple. The answer wasn't. Nathan felt his throat tighten. He wanted to say yes, that he understood. But did he? Or was he just afraid to be alone? Can we talk? His voice was lower than he intended, hesitant. Sierra didn't respond right away. When she did, her voice was tired. I don't know if there's anything left to talk about, Nathan. Please. Another long pause. Then the sound of a sigh on the other end. Tomorrow at 8, at the restaurant where we first met, but don't expect anything from me. And with that, the line went dead. Nathan stared at his phone, a knot tightening in his gut. He wanted to believe there was still hope, to fix even a part of the damage, but for the first time in his life, he wasn't sure of anything. That night, sleep never came. He lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling, retracing every mistake, every wrong turn, trying to find a way back. But maybe there was no way back. And tomorrow, he would find out the truth. The hours dragged. The night was endless and restless. Nathan tossed in bed over and over, unable to find peace. Every time he closed his eyes, Leah's face surfaced, the firm tone of her voice, the certainty with which she had told him he was no longer an option. It gnawed at him. But what could he do? She had moved on. He had to face that. Or at least try. It was a strange realization that he no longer had a place in her life. For years he believed his presence was essential, that even when he was gone, she still belonged to him in some way. But no. Leah was not his shadow, not his memory. She had rebuilt her own identity without him. And that hurt most. He forced his thoughts away from her. He needed to focus on something else. Sierra, the woman who might still give him a chance. But did he want her? Or was she just a placeholder for what Leah once was? That question haunted him. When morning came, he still had no answer. He got up, took a long shower, and chose something smart but simple. He didn't want to look like he was trying too hard, but he also didn't want to look like he'd given up. He arrived at the restaurant at exactly 8, the same place where he and Sierra had first met. Back then, she was someone who never settled for less. Now, after everything, he wasn't sure if he still had a place in her world. He sat by the window watching the city move. Minutes crawled. She was late. 5, 10, 15 minutes. Each second chipped away at his hope. Would she come? Or had he lost her too? Nathan clenched his jaw, fighting the sinking feeling in his chest. But deep down, he knew. This time, he might really be alone. His phone buzzed on the table, jolting him. He grabbed it, Sierra. Maybe it would say, "I'm running late." But as he opened it, his heart sank. The message said something else entirely. "Nathan, I'm not coming. I spent the night thinking and realized this isn't fair to either of us. You need more time to figure out what you truly want. I know you're lost right now, but I can't be the one to rescue you. That's something only you can do. I'm moving forward, and I hope someday you'll find your way. I'm sorry, Sierra." The words blurred. He read them again and again, wishing they would change. But they didn't. She wasn't coming. This was final. He let the phone fall to the table, the weight of reality crashing down. In just days, everything he thought he controlled had slipped through his fingers. Leah had moved on. Sierra wouldn't be second place. And now he was alone. His chest tightened with a mix of regret, frustration, and fear. For the first time in years, he didn't know who he was without someone next to him. He had spent his life building an image, money, success, parties, admiration. He always had what he wanted. Or so he thought. But now without Leah, without Sierra, with no one waiting at home, what was left? He leaned back, elbows on the table. A waiter approached. "Can I get you something, sir?" Nathan looked around. Couples talking, friends laughing, people living. No one cared that his world was collapsing. He shook his head. "No, thank you." He paid for the untouched coffee and left the restaurant. Outside, the sharp New York wind bit his skin, but he didn't care. He walked, aimless, letting the city swallow him. For once, he didn't know where he was going. He just needed to think, needed to understand. How had he ended up here? When did he become the man no one wanted to stay with? His mind drifted to Leah. In the early years, she had been full of light, ambition, ideas, dreams. He admired her once, loved her energy. But then, as his own goals grew, he stopped seeing her. She became part of the backdrop. Someone he ignored. And now, watching her rise, he realized she was never small. He had made her feel that way. And Sierra? She appeared when Leah was already gone. At first it was exhilarating. Sierra was bold, passionate, demanding, but all she ever wanted was love, and he used her to feel alive. Now, neither of them was in his life. And he had to live with that. He walked for hours, the weight of his choices settling in. What mattered? The money, the image, the admiration, or something else he had always overlooked? He stopped at a park, watching a mother chase her young son through the grass, both laughing without a care. His chest tightened. When had he last enjoyed something that simple? He had always looked ahead, never at what was right in front of him. Maybe it was time to change. Maybe it was time to rebuild. Alone, he picked up his phone. For the first time, there was no one to call. Leah? No. Sierra? No. And then he did something he had never done. He dialed a number and waited. After a moment, a warm voice answered. Nathan? What a surprise. He exhaled deeply. Hi, Mom. Can we talk? There was a pause. Of course, sweetheart. Is everything okay? Nathan stared at the horizon, feeling something shift inside. I think it's finally going to be. He stood in the square, speaking with her for a long time. When they hung up, he kept walking. But this time, not to escape. This time, to find something no amount of wealth had ever given him. The Stoics taught that everything we value can be taken away, and that true peace comes from within. As Epictetus once said, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Nathan's journey showed us that redemption doesn't always come through grand gestures. Sometimes it starts with a simple phone call to someone you've forgotten. Sometimes it begins the moment you sit in silence and admit to yourself, I was wrong. Maybe you see a bit of Nathan in yourself, or Leah, or even Sierra. Wherever you are on your path, know this. Healing doesn't mean erasing the past. It means facing it, learning from it, and becoming someone better because of it. So if you're still with us, my amazing friends, thank you. Truly. If this story made you feel something, share it with someone who might need it. Hit like if it spoke to you, subscribe if you want more stories that don't just entertain, but speak to the heart. Because sometimes a fictional journey can bring us closer to the truth than we ever expected. Until next time, stay kind, stay present, and remember, growth often begins when the illusion ends.